It is another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 5 films released on October 23rd, 2009. And we've been kind of building this up over the last couple of weeks, but Paranormal Activity had come out a couple of weeks ago, and as I said before, it slowly but surely began to move up at the box office, and this particular weekend, it was the #1 movie at the box office, grossing $21 million, and essentially establishing itself as the next big Halloween, the next big Halloween tradition. But before it had to do that, it had to take down the biggest new release of the weekend, which, like I said, it did. Saw 6. This was also back in the time when you had motion posters becoming the trend. Like, you used to go to a movie theater, you'd have a screen where, it looked like it's just a normal poster thing where they put the posters up, and then you would see a motion poster like that, and that was one of the motion posters that they had for Saw 6. They had one for Terminator Genesis as well, and a couple of other ones too, but I missed that trend. That used to be really fun overall, and so because Paranormal Activities was around, Saw 6 fortunately became the lowest grossing film in the Saw franchise at the time. And nevertheless, it was still considered a financial success because it was a low-budget film, but it definitely showed that Saw was really beginning to lose a lot of its muster overall, and thus Paranormal Activity took over, and now we have the Saw franchise on its last couple of lives it has left. But similar to the last film, Saw 6 maintains the focus of the posthumous effects of the Jigsaw killer Tobin Bell and the progression of his successor, played by Costas Mandylor. The plot follows insurance executive William Easton, played by Peter Outerbridge, who must complete a series of deadly games set up by Hoffman in order to rescue his employees and family. Meanwhile, the FBI come to suspect that Agent Peter Strahm, who was framed for Hoffman as being Jigsaw's successor, was not actually Jigsaw's accomplice, and reopens the investigation, drawing Hoffman into motion to protect his secret identity. Shawnee Smith is also in here too, and you can basically pretty much tell where that direction is going to go there. But also, Betsy Russell is here from Private School, and Mark Rolston, and that's pretty much the main cast in general here. And like I said, it's definitely a movie that is pretty much a typical Saw movie. However, this one, I think, is actually one of the better installments of the series. And I think it's mostly because the trap designs in this one were actually pretty cool overall. And, it did do things that were completely different from the other Saw movies. And if you watch it nowadays, it is kind of a film that's ahead of its time. I mean, most contemporary reviews, when you look at this, they cite elements of social commentary, highlighting the topicality of Jigsaw victims, Eddie and Simone, who are played by Marty Mordour and Tendera Howard, who are two predatory mortgage brokers in light of at the time, the subprime mortgage crisis, which was ongoing at the time's release. And also they said that Jigsaw's testing of William, the Peter Outerbridge character, and his associates as a consequence for their unethical behavior as health insurance providers, they bring that up now. Most Americans would prefer to put... I lost my train of thought there for a second, but as according to the Philadelphia Inquirer's James Franklin, he says, Saw 6 aims to give viewers the vicarious pleasure of seeing the American health insurance industry personified here as a bunch of backstabbing jerks get what's coming to them. Most Americans, however, would probably prefer to pay lower premiums than witness their HMO manager being dissolved from the inside out by hydrofluoric acid. So yeah, I mean, most people looked at this and saw this as, seeing people that they did not, seeing the backstabbing of the American health industry people getting what's coming to them. And on that front, you got to give it credit for that. Like, it was a movie that was pretty much ahead of its time and really has not aged in the near 20 years since this movie came out. I mean, this is still something very much a topic at hand. And this film, I think, did a pretty good job of handling that in this situation here. I think it's definitely one of the stronger movies in the series in general. It doesn't do the same things we've seen done before with the other Saw films, with the exception of the traps. And the traps here are really cool to watch. And, like with Saw 2, one of the other, was probably my favorite film of that series in general. That and Saw X. I mean, they do something different, but they don't steer away from the traditions of the other movies. Kind of like what we just had with Final Destination Bloodlines. It's not the same movie over and over again. They're adding a new element to it, but you are still getting a lot of the stuff that makes these movies so special. And in Saw 6, that's definitely what they're doing here. I think it is a really good film, a well-made film. You know, it's definitely one of the stronger entries in the series, and yet it was the one that nobody went to go see because it was not a big hit. It was losing out to Paranormal Activity, but it still made money, which means that we were going to get another Saw movie the following year. Saw 3D, the final chapter, or at least it was supposed to be called the final chapter, but of course that turns out not to be true. But we'll eventually get to that one next Halloween. But so that is Saw 6. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie we have here. Another great movie that got kind of overlooked when it came out. From the same animation studio that gave us the 2007 TMNT movie, Astro Boy. Yeah, common sense would probably tell you not to release a big animated feature like this in the Halloween in October, because most of them do not usually do very well. At least back before COVID, that wasn't the case. But I guess nowadays it's not really. It doesn't really seem like it's that much of a deal overall. But back then, yeah, you don't usually release a movie like this in October because the kids are still in school. You're not getting the matinees during the weekdays. It's mostly money coming in on the weekends. And unfortunately, this movie failed to make money. It brought in only $42 million of a $65 million budget, which meant that the studio who made this, Imagi Studios, had to shut down because of it. It was basically the last film they did. And I say sadly because this is a really good movie. This is, of course, based off of the popular manga series, the iconic character from Japan, where you have Dr. Tenma, played by Nicolas Cage, who creates Astro Boy, played by Freddie Highmore, a teenage robot implemented with the memories of his son after he's killed in an accident. The pair-faced Stone, played by Donald Sutherland, the president of Metro City, who is running for re-election for their betrayal. You also have a cast that includes, Bill Nighy, Matt Lucas, Eugene Levy, Samuel L. Jackson, Charlize Theron, and Nathan Lane. And this is directed by David Bowers, who also did Flushed Away. And it is a really good movie. I mean, it is definitely a film that, unlike the TMNT movie that the studio made, it doesn't feel like a film that is supposed to be made for the fan base, but they tell you in the beginning, here's all these things that you need to know about the fan base in general. Just like, it doesn't do that here. It's a very simple, straightforward storyline. It's one that you can easily relate to, and it's very much basically the Japanese robotic equivalent of Pinocchio in a way. And it really is the best thing the studio ever did, which is a shame that they're out of business because, yeah, this is some really good stuff overall, and it's just, it's just looking like it's really hard to take something from another country and basically make it into its own thing. I mean, we saw that earlier in the year, especially with stuff from Japan. Like, we saw that earlier in the year with Dragon Ball Evolution, and it took a while for them to bring Pokemon to the States and make it successful in film form. Of course, it was successful with the anime, as with Digimon. Like, I guess that's still why Doraemon has never caught on here, which is a shame because that character is such fun. And the fact that he's well known all over the world, except for here in the States, where it's really hard for a studio to come around and make him a successful character. If Disney can't do it with Doraemon, then I don't know who else could, honestly. But yeah, Astro Boy is another one of those characters that people recognize the character here, but nobody really knows the character in general. I'm not really much of an Astro Boy person myself, but I mean, you can instantly relate to the story here and get attached to these characters so quickly, even if you've never seen anything else from the Astro Boy lore. I mean, it's a movie that works really well to stand up on its own, where you don't have to watch previous stuff beforehand and get a sense of what the story's about. You can get right into it and find yourself really enjoying the film that you have here. I mean, the overabundance of celebrity voice actors in here is a little bit much, but like I said, it never really takes away from the true enjoyment of the movie itself. It is still a ton of fun. It's definitely a movie that is well worth your time, and one you should definitely check out and find it if you can, because it is really worth it. I would have liked to see this go on to become a new franchise in general, but sadly, that's just not how the way the world works, unfortunately. But anyway, that's Astro Boy, so let's go ahead and move on to our next movie. Ladies and gentlemen, our first Twilight clone of many that we're going to get to over the next couple of years, Suc de Freak, the Vampire's Assistant. Okay, technically it's not really a Twilight clone, seeing as how this came out at the book that this is based off of came out in the beginning of the decade, but I mean, come on. Why else would they make this movie? Except for the fact that Twilight had just come out the year before. Hell, the brother of the director of this movie was directing New Moon. This is directed by the Whites, This is directed by Paul Weitz, and his brother Chris Weitz was working on New Moon at the time. Of course, these are the guys that did About a Boy, American Pie, those movies. But yeah, this is pretty much their attempt to try to cash in on the Twilight bandwagon. Even though, yeah, it's not a movie that's literally a Twilight knockoff, but they made it clearly to copy the success of Twilight. And needless to say, it didn't quite work. But let me tell you something. This is one of the better Twilight knockoffs that we're going to get to here, because a lot of them are fucking awful, man. But this one's not as bad. But you have a story where you have teenager Darren Shan, who's an excellent student and the pride of joy of his perfect middle-class family, but his best friend is the reckless Steve. When they receive a flyer from an advertisement for a freak show, they sneak to the theater to see the attractions. The star attraction is a vampire called Larton Crespley, played by John C. Reilly, who performs with a colorful yet lethal spider that literally looks like the spiders you see in the Spider-Man, the Tom Holland movies. The robotic Spider-Man. Like, they literally look like Spider-Man. They even have the colors, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But after the show, Darren tarries to see the spider, and overseer Steve unsuccessfully trying to convince Larton to transform him into a vampire. Darren steals Larton's vampire, with later bites Steve. In search for an antidote from Larton, Darren accepts a deal to become his half-vampire assistant. So yeah, like I said, it's pretty much them copying the Twilight, following in the Twilight factor here. But like I said, it does it better than some of the other Twilight knockoffs, easily. I mean, you've got a cast that includes a lot of notable names in here. It really does have a really good cast involved in it. John C. Reilly, as I said, Josh Hutcherson, who of course will later star in another Twilight-esque franchise in a couple of years from now. Much better than the Twilight movies, easily. Ray Stevenson, Salma Hayek, Patrick Fugit, Willem Dafoe, Ken Watanabe, Jane Krakowski, Christian Shaw, Orlando Jones, Frankie Faison, Colleen Camp. A lot of good people in this movie. And as I said, it is very much a Twilight kind of esque storyline. But as I said, it's very much one of the better Twilight knockoffs in particular. And there are even times in here where the movie does work overall. You get a lot of good performances in here. I like the monkey girl in this, Jessica Carlson, who didn't really do a whole lot since then, which is kind of unfortunate. I thought she had a lot of charm in here. She has a good chemistry with the leading actor in here. It's not a bad movie. It's just kind of a bland movie. Nothing really about it makes it anything spectacular or amazing, and it is what it is. It's a movie where you think there's going to be much more to it, and there just isn't. There isn't much to it overall. It just kind of feels like a studio trying to copy the success of something very popular that came out the year before, and unfortunately not doing enough to get it to be the success that it was. It was close though. It was like off by $800,000 of its budget, $40 million. It ended up being the $39.2 million worldwide. So yeah, it didn't do quite the numbers they wanted. But like I said, enjoy this, because the Twilight knockoffs we're going to get over the next couple of years are going to be much, much worse than this. So, yeah, so take that for what you will. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Lars von Trier's latest film, and that is Antichrist. And you're probably wondering, well, that doesn't look like Antichrist. This is actually being recorded after I recorded the ending of the show, and I completely realized that I forgot to talk about Amelia. So, yeah, that's my fault for not adding that in there. But this is Amelia. This is Mira Nair's biopic about Amelia Earhart, starring Hilary Swank, and a movie that is clearly trying to win her another Academy Award. I mean, the trailer literally said, from two-time Academy Award winner, starring two-time Academy Award winner for Best Actress, Hilary Swank. It's just like, you're really not even trying to hide the fact that you won an Oscar so badly, aren't you? But okay, a story about Amelia Earhart should be pretty interesting, right? I mean, it's a good concept. It's a film that could potentially be good overall, but yeah, it's not. Amelia Earhart is a Kansas girl discovering the thrill of aviation at age 23, and within 12 years has progressed to winning the Distinguished Flying Cross for being the first woman to pilot a plane solo across the Atlantic Ocean. At age 39, she sets out an attempt to circumnavigate the globe, an adventure that catapults her into aviation myth. And again, on paper, it doesn't look like a bad movie overall, but sadly, this is one of those movies that you really need to dig deep and see that this is a film that's clearly Oscar baiting at its absolute worst. I mean, this is a film that was, when I watched it, I couldn't believe how bad it was. I mean, the pieces are there for something really good. I mean, you've got talent all across the board with this movie. I mean, Richard Gere, Hilary Swank, Ewan McGregor, Christopher Eccleston. The script was co-written by Ronald Bass, who won an Oscar for writing the script for Rain Man. Mira Nair is a director who very rarely misses. I don't think she's ever missed up until this point, but lo and behold, here it is. The worst thing she's ever done as a director, and it really shows. I mean, this was... this was rough. This was a rough one to sit through. I mean, I couldn't believe how manipulative it was, how much they were trying to just throw an Oscar, try to beg the Academy Award to give them Oscars for this, and it just didn't work. It's the interesting thing about these Oscar bait movies, honestly, is that there are certain movies that you can easily look at and see, yeah, you're really trying too hard. You're focusing more on focusing on your acceptance speech, writing an acceptance speech for your Oscar that you think you're going to get, instead of actually making a movie and trying to tell a goddamn story. I mean, that's literally what you can tell with an Oscar bait movie. Like, you can tell when an Oscar bait movie is clearly focusing not on the film itself, but what they think is going to lead to an Academy. I hit my screen and the light went on. I mean, that's the one thing I don't like about having a computer monitor that you can actually touch and move up here, because you hit something and then it does something that you're not expecting to happen. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that, bottom line, this movie is more focused on what they're going to say on Oscar night, instead of actually making a compelling movie that gets people that want to see a story that should be told. The story of Amelia Earhart is a very interesting story, and one that should be told the right way. This film does not do that. This film does not do that at all. And it takes a performance by Hilary Swank that should be good, but you can just tell she's not even putting the effort into it, man. It's like she isn't even trying to actually put effort into this, like she did with $1 Million Baby, like she did with Boys Don't Cry. It's not in here with this movie at all, and it just really feels like everything in this movie is trying so hard to grab an Oscar that night in March, but it never did. It was trashed by critics. It was a huge flop at the box office, and yeah, it really is the perfect definition of a bad Oscar bait movie that everyone knew was a bad Oscar bait movie, and they didn't even bother to give it the attention that they think that the movie thought it deserved. So yeah, it's not a good movie, bad film, Amelia. So now let's go ahead and get to our next movie, Lars von Trier's Antichrist. Oh yeah, it's a Lars von Trier movie. You could tell just from that trailer alone. But it stars Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg as a married couple who experience the accidental death of their infant son, after which they retreat to a cabin in the woods to grieve, while the man experiences strange visions and the woman manifests increasingly violent sexual behavior and sadomasochism. The narrative is divided by a prologue, 4 chapters, and an epilogue. And yeah, as I said, this is pretty much everything you expect from a Lars von Trier movie. You're either going to love it, or you're either going to hate it. There's no in-between in this one. And, can't really say it's a great movie per se, but it is very much what you expect from a Lars von Trier movie. I mean, it's a decent film. But it works mostly because of Dafoe and Gainsbourg really giving it their all in this. And yeah, it's not afraid to go dark when it needs to. And it really is a film that does go dark for the sake of being dark. But then again, that's what you kind of expect from Lars von Trier in this case. This is actually the first part of a film series where it's called the Depression Trilogy. And it kind of makes sense because he wrote this back in 2006. And he was actually hospitalized due to a significant episode of clinical depression. And because of that, the film's largely influenced by his struggles and depression with anxiety. And the other 2 movies in the series are Melancholia with Kirsten Dunst, and then Nymphomaniac Parts 1 and 2. Again, both as chaotic as you expect from Trier. And yeah, it definitely delivers everything you expect in this movie. And like I said, it's specifically made for Lars von Trier lovers. I mean, if you like dark stuff, and like weird dark stuff in general, you're gonna enjoy this. And for me, I just kind of thought it was alright, but I don't hate it like most people probably will. It's definitely a very polarizing film, nevertheless. But anyway, that's the Antichrist. So let's go ahead and... I'm sorry, Antichrist. Not the Antichrist, but Antichrist. Or stylized as Antichrist. Like, it literally has a thing that says Antichrist, and it looks like it doesn't look like it has a T at the end. It looks like a person there, but anyway, I'm getting off topic here. But let's go ahead and get to a movie on a much more lighter note to wrap this week up, and that is Uma Thurman starring in Motherhood. Coming this fall on ABC. Seriously, that does not look like a movie. That looks like the pilot to a television series. A trailer that they would show for a television series. Like, at the upfronts, they show off all the new shows. That literally looks like a show that they're trying to promote for a television network. Not a movie that's supposed to go straight to theaters. But, yeah, Uma Thurman said yes to this. Eliza Kendall Welch, played by Thurman, is mother of Clara and Lucas, living with her spouse, played by Anthony Edwards, in a Manhattan apartment. Today is May 25th, Clara's 6th birthday, and she has to make arrangements for a party, as well as attend to do day-to-day chores, including blogging and entering an online contest, motherhood, and looking after her invalid elderly neighbor and a dog. Things will slowly get out of hand after a car gets towed to a film shooting, the tire of her bike gets punctured, she alienates herself from her friend Sheila, played by Minnie Driver. Clara's name is misspelled on the cake, while Avery refuses to answer his cell phone. After being assisted to by a delivery man, played by Arjun Gupta, who finds her attractive, she concludes she's had enough and decides not to return home. Why did she agree to this? Like, why did anybody say yes to this? I mean, really. What was in this movie that made people say, we want to do a movie about this? Nothing. Nothing of value happens in this effing movie. And you can tell that I'm not the only one, because this thing has bad reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got like a 20% on there. And literally, this film premiered in Britain, and it was so bad, they put it down into one cinema in London. And it made £9 on its opening night, and £88 on its opening weekend. 11 people bought tickets for this, and only one person attended the first showing. Wow. I mean, I never thought we'd have something on the level of Zizek Road, but this might be even worse than Zizek's Road, honestly, because Uma Thurman is a much bigger name than Katherine Heigl is, but at least Zizek Road made $30 here in the States, but £88 in the U.S. on its opening weekend. In the UK on its opening weekend. That's pathetic. I mean, that's pathetic, but it's a perfect assumption of the movie itself, because, yeah, it is not a good movie. It's a boring film. Like, nothing happens in this movie that warrants a feature film based off of this. Absolutely nothing. I mean, there's just nothing there. It's not funny. It's not clever. Their story is not really that engaging at all. I mean, it's a dull movie, and these people deserve a lot better who are involved in this movie. I mean, this is ridiculously bad. I mean, I couldn't believe how lazy this movie is, how lackluster it is. I mean, it is a bad movie. I mean, yeah. There's a reason why you see this. If you go to a Dollar General, you'll see it in the $1 bin in the DVD section, the little DVD section they have in the electronics area. That's the type of movie that belongs there. This is the type of movie that you go into a Walmart when it first comes out and sees it as one of the bland new release titles. I mean, we can't put it with the new releases that everybody wants to see. We can't put it next to Captain America: Brave New World. No, we got to put it in the small area with this. This movie would fit right in with the numerous shark movies that Walmart has, the ones that nobody ever hears of, but they see the cover, it's just like, oh, I want to get that. Nobody wants this garbage. Nobody wants to see this movie where literally nothing happens at all. It's a bland, boring movie about a character that you don't give a shit about, and again, it just feels like a television pilot blown up for the big screen. Like, I mean, the people who made This Is Us and Parenthood probably could have made this a much more interesting movie or TV show, but not this. I got nothing else for you. This is not a good movie. Motherhood. What more do you have to say? This is it. That's what I'll say, because that's the end of another episode of Time About the Movies. But the next time we meet, there is a movie called This Is It, and it is one that features Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's This Is It is the big new release. We'll take a look at that as we see the last thing Michael Jackson did before he tragically died earlier in the summer. But we also have a sequel that most people were really surprised was actually getting made. The Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. And then, of course, we have Jared Hess back in the spotlight again with Gentlemen Broncos. His first film since Nacho Libre, and the last notable film he would make, of course, before the Minecraft movie, and not in a good way. I'll explain more of that tomorrow on the show, so definitely be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification button, and the bell, because you get updates on when new videos come out. And we do post new videos here every day. So, With all that said, I am off. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.